Good morning, good evening, good night. I recently posted my schedule, just by the way, so go check that out in my description. I know YouTube terms, guys, trust. But I just posted that. So, via the schedule, I will be reading The Deployment Notice by United Cosmos, Chapter 6, called 6. Without further ado, let's get started. He probably shouldn't have been surprised, as he was that everyone was waiting for him in his apartment. The 119 and Co. had always been good at gatherings. He should have figured they would have made a thing out of his send-off. He was glad they were here, though. Bobby, Hen, Jim, Maddie, Athena, Carla, Karen, May, Harry, Denny, Nia, Eddie's abuela, and Tia Pepe were all scattered across his apartment when they walked in. They also brought over a feast for them to eat, apparently wanting to ensure that he didn't leave hungry. He was greeted by hugs from everyone and then sent up to shower and get ready while they finished setting up dinner. He took a quick shower to wash the beach away, then shaved and put on his fatigues. He checked his pack to make sure everything was in it, laced up boots, and walked down the stairs to the loft. Everyone turned to him, expressions soft and strange. It was odd being dressed like this in front of them. It was a new side that they were seeing, and he could tell it was strange for them too. Pepe got over it first. Come, Evanito, it's time to eat, she said, shooing him towards the counter where the food was laid out. We can't have you leaving hungry. He just smiled at her. Thank you, he said quietly, and that seemed to be the cue for everyone to grab a plate and start serving food. It was normal. Everyone seemed to be ignoring the elephant in the room that was Buck's departure and were doing their best to enjoy the time together. Just then there was a knock at the door and Buck looked around. But nobody who he'd expect to be here was... But no. Everyone who he'd expect to be here was already here. It's open, he called, getting up to go greet whoever was at the door. The door swung over, revealing two figures standing there. You didn't think I'd miss your send-off, did you, kid? Luca! He called and was put into a hug by the older man. You're supposed to be at work. You both are, he said, looking over to the man's partner, Lena Bosco, who was grinning at him. He texted Luca yesterday to let him know that he wouldn't be able to make it to coffee next week. And why? But he hadn't expected to see him before he left. We got someone to cover a couple hours of our shift, Bosco explained with a shrug, then pointed to Luca. Besides, he's your ride to the airport. Bosco? Eddie's voice called out, clearly confused. You guys know each other? Bosco just laughed. Hey, Diaz. Long time no see. And yeah, Tripole is my partner. I met Kid here years ago. Even helped out when he was training at the academy. I'm not sure I would have passed the chemistry section without her, Buck explained with a laugh, pulling her into a hug. It's good to see you. Well, my mind is officially blown, Chim said, miming his head exploding. I didn't think that was possible after yesterday, but here we are. That got a chuckle out of everyone, and Bosco and Luca grabbed a plate and joined everyone else. Oh, Captain Nash, send us Buck's schedule and we'll pick up any shifts of his that we can, Luca offered, and Bosco nodded in agreement. Thank you. Bobby nodded at them. I will. This food is amazing, Bosco called around a bite. I'm not surprised about Nash cooking, but whoever made the rest of the food, I don't think I've ever had anything this good before. Hey, remember who feeds you? Luca called, elbowing her. No, seriously, try it, she said, pointing at his plate with her fork. He rolled his eyes and took it back. I take it back, he moaned. She's right. Who made this? Pepe and Isabel just laughed and smiled at each other. That was us. You two are amazing. I don't think I ever want to eat anything else again, Luca replied. Thank you so much. Buck saw the moment the two ladies decided they liked the two firefighters, and he was secretly pleased. He was happy that, despite his views, the two different parts of his life were able to mesh together so well. They were so easily accepted by everyone he cares about. So, Luca, was it? Hen asked, and at his nod continued. How exactly did you meet Buck? I mean, I know your brother was on his team, but... Of course Hen was digging for more information. He couldn't blame her after he revealed an entire secret past. If anything, he was amused by the obvious digging. Hen's curiosity must have reached new peaks. Usually she was more settled than this. Well, I met him for the first time when he was about 3 years into his service. So, 7, 8 years ago? He looked over to Buck for confirmation, and Buck just shrugged. That sounded about right to him. He'd been injured pretty bad on a mission and was sent to recover stateside, but my brother knew he didn't have anyone, or anywhere or anyone to stay with, so he called me and asked me to look after the kid. I'm still entirely grateful for that. Buck grinned appreciatively at the man, and the PT and bed rest sucked. But I swear 4 months of some of the greatest food I'd ever had. Luca just laughed at that. It's still crazy to hear you say that. My brother was always the better cook. Yeah, but it's not like the Navy, Buck started. Gave you good supplies, or much of any sort of supplies, I know. Truly a travesty, the other man finished, having heard it from Buck and Marco himself all those years ago. I'm sure your food still would have been amazing, even if I got to try your brother's too. And Madhu agreed, Buck stated, pointing at his fork at him to make sure. Did you get to meet the whole team then? Maddie asked, curiosity latching onto the new piece of information, especially regarding the family Buck had found when she couldn't be there. Over video call, yes. But other than that, no. I only ever met Danny and Madhu in person. Other than Buck, Marco brought Danny home with him a couple of times before leave. And Madhu came for a week to visit Buck, Luke explained. Lena actually met him too. He got a week off because he was very concerned about his fiancée. He threw a wink at Buck, who just groaned, knowing he was about to be exposed. He wasn't my fiancé yet, Buck muttered half-heartedly, trying to distract his team. Concerned? Bobby asked. Of course that was when he joined the conversation. I know you said he was injured, but how badly? It wasn't that bad, Buck attempted to appease their worry. Torn rotary cuff, sprained wrist, broken clavicle, and 3 broken toes, a concussion, 156 stitches, and first and second degree burns spread across his entire body and severely bruised tailbone. Oh, and a Navy Cross for his troubles. Lena listened it, then glanced it over at her partner. Am I forgetting anything? And a very concerned team, Luca added. And that, Lena nodded. Wait, you met Buck while he was active? Eddie asked, glancing over at her. Yep, I met him, Danny, Marco, and Katuna, she answered. I was in my probationary year when Buck was on medical leave, and Tripod used to bring them by the firehouse sometimes. It led to some awkward encounters, though. Buck groaned loudly, smacking his head against the table. Please, I beg you, don't. Bosco was absolutely gleeful, though, practically begging anyone to ask her what she was talking about. I'll bite, Chim said. I can always use more teasing material. What awkward encounters? Well, while I was at the 119, I heard some stories about Buck's probationary year and some ludicrous activities he used to perform in the fire trucks. She made direct eye contact with Buck, with a ferocious grin on her face. Let's just say he had some prior experiences. Buck buried his face in his hands, and the table erupted in chorus of disbelief and teasing voices. And here I thought we were friends, he said in mock offense to Bosco, who just laughed. You lost the right to not have that story shared as soon as I found out you apparently didn't learn your lesson, she reasoned, and silently Buck agreed that was probably fair. At least until she added, You traumatized the young, innocent lesbian. You were a lot of things, but innocent wasn't one of them, Buck shot back, and she just grinned again. The two of you were a menace to society, Luca laughed. When I heard Madhu was visiting, I was fully prepared to let you continue to stay in my guest room, but my brother called me and told me to make sure he got a hotel for you two, or else I'd regret it. Buck was bright red and hiding his face in his hands now, and just letting out one long, continuous groan as he was thoroughly embarrassed by everyone at the table, which happened to include Eddie's abuela, who, when he peeked through his fingers, appeared to be giggling along with Pepe. It took a while, but eventually the table settled, and everyone took a chance to drink some of their drinks or eat some of their food. Karen rounded up the kids, excluding May, and set them in the living room with his TV and PlayStation. As entertaining as that was, Athena started, and of course it was her, latching on to every piece of mentioned information. There was that Hen seemed to have missed. Let's circle back to the part where you got a Navy Cross. What's the story there, Buckaroo? Well, it was sort of like hush money, sort of situation, except with a medal and a raise. I can tell you the official story, but you guys are going to have to kind of piece together what actually happened. He explained and shot a look at Eddie, who was the most likely to figure out what he was trying to say before he even said it. Eddie nodded silently and hemmed him with a, "All right, let's hear it." To start with, I was on the mission solo. They did that sometimes, or sent us with different groups, but it was rare. He explained and everyone nodded, paying rapt attention. I was being sent into the compound where I was to extract a witness, someone who had been kidnapped and my superiors believed her to have valuable information. He took a couple sips of his water, contemplating exactly how he should word the story. I was supposed to be an undercover as a guard, gain access to the prison, and then get out. Fairly straightforward. The intel I had been given suggests that she was the only prisoner there. She wasn't, was she? Eddie asked, and from the look on his face, he already had an idea as to where the story was going. And your superiors knew it too, right? I can't really say. Buck shrugged, but locked eyes with Eddie, willing him to understand. That means they knowingly gave him false intel, Eddie assumes correctly and shares the rest of the table, although it looked like most of them had already figured that out. I got in and spent enough time working my way up to be a guard for the prisoner that was my target, to find out that the group using the compound was making a significant amount of their fortune through trafficking. Buck explained, looking around the table and taking a breath before he shared the next bit. There were about 25 children being kept in the compound prison waiting to be sold. There were several gasps and murmurs of horror across the table. He was infinitely greatly that the kids, barring May, had been set up in the living room with a space station. I informed command of what was going on, and they said go ahead with the mission as planned, and they'd do what they could for the kids when the resources became available. He explained, staring directly at Eddie again. He was sure that the man would be able to easily read his anger in the gist of what was actually being said. That means they told him just stick for the mission, forget the kids, and they wouldn't be wasting resources on the issue. Eddie translated fairly accurately. Their shocked and horrified noises only grew in intensity at that announcement. I did complete the mission. I grabbed the woman and 5 kids and brought them to the drop-off where the chopper was waiting. Except then I ordered the pilot to wait and went back to the compound for more kids. He explained, I could only grab a few at a time because I didn't want to be noticed until we were on our way to base. I got 14 of them out before things went wrong. Eddie grabbed his hand on the table and, well, Buck squeezed tightly. If anyone would understand it would be him. Someone must have noticed what I was doing and sounded the alarm. I was on my way out when the group of 6 kids when the overheard alarm started blaring. I knew we'd been caught and I needed to get out of the building fast. The group running the place had planned mass suicide if ever caught, taking whoever they could with them, and they knew we were still in the building. Eddie squeezed his hand harder, and he could see Maddie gripping too tightly to Chim's arm, where his eyes fixed on the side of the table. I didn't have time to go back for the rest. Although I was still going to try, but I couldn't leave the kids I was already with. So I got us to a window and started funneling them out, having them run as soon as their feet hit the ground. I was last with the 2 youngest in my arms. We were in the act of climbing out the window when the building exploded. There were multiple loud gasps at that. Maddie and Karen were crying now, and honestly, both Bobby and Carla looked close to tears. Pepe and Athena looked like they wanted to murder someone, but couldn't find a suitable target. Eddie's face was carefully impassive, but he was still radiating support in every twitch and movement he made. I survived, obviously, he said a bit belatedly, but the 2 in my arms didn't, and neither did 2 of the other kids. Or at least, I don't think they did. I was in pretty bad shape, and I didn't exactly have time to check for a pulse. And I couldn't really carry anyone out, since I was already carrying the last 2 who were injured at that point. His words started coming faster, and he started sounding less sure of his explanation, even though he knew it was the truth. Oh, whatever. Buckaroo, Hen called out for his attention softly. No one here believes that you did anything less than your absolute best. No one here thinks you're at fault. That was an awful thing to have happened, but you saved those and you could. And I, for one, am incredibly proud of you. There were many noises of agreement from around the table. Eddie hummed and continued rubbing his thumbs in circles over his knuckles. Buck took a breath and continued. I carried the two and got them back to the chopper. We all squeezed in somehow, and we were brought to the nearest base with a hospital. I collapsed on my way. My superiors met me there for a debrief, and I kind of lost it, Buck explained. I screamed my damn heart out when they tried to put me under to deal with my injuries. I threatened a lot of stuff about making sure everyone knew what they did and how all those dead kids were on their hands. Good for you, Carlos said, with quite an impressive yet justifiable amount of conviction behind the statement, but Buck just shook his head. I couldn't have made it good on the threat. To start with, I'd signed contracts against that, and I wasn't about to end up in prison for who knows how long. Plus, any news stories I would put on, they would even just be suppressed anyways. It was a losing battle, and that wasn't gonna bring those kids back. And the families already had the closure, knowing who killed them. He explained bitterly. By the time I woke up, I'd been transported to the base stateside and was met with rays and a medal, neither of which I wanted. I wasn't even allowed to see my team. In just a quick video call where Marco told me I'd be staying with Luca for them to see that I was even alive. The separation was a big part of why they were also concerned. It was silent for a moment while everyone just digested that. Fuck the government! Specifically your old superiors, May declared, and Bobby made a surprised nod at the outlets. May Grant, Athena explained. I apologize for the language, but my point stands, May says with her hands up in mock surrender. You and those kids deserve better, Buck. Thanks, May, he said with a sad but genuine smile. That means a lot. After that, they slowly transitioned into happier stories of his time as a SEAL for the rest of the meal. Well, as happy as stories got, which meant they were mainly about the things they got up to on leave or between missions. And if Eddie ever let go of his hand, then Buck certainly wasn't going to jinx it and say anything about it. He definitely wasn't going to be the one to let go before he had either. Reader's note. Go check out the author. They are so good. I love their writing. Oh, it's so good. Low-key started crying like halfway through this chapter, so if my voice sounds wobbly, I'm so sorry. But I love this story so much. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Please come back to see the other chapters. Have a wonderful day.